You have probably lived this. The first round happens. The excitement was intense. But when it is time for the second round, the body does not respond. The desire is there, but the erection simply does not return at the speed you would like. This is the scene that hundreds of men over 60 describe when they come to the clinic. It is not a lack of will. It is a failure in the biological mechanism that should sustain the blood flow and the nerve response needed to raise the penis again. Today's video is about this interval, known as the refractory period, and about how to shorten it in a practical way to regain firmness without relying on pills. The refractory period is not a disease. It is a natural recovery phase of the body. After orgasm, prolactin rises, dopamine falls, and the vessels lose the tone that kept blood trapped in the corpora cavernosa. It is as if the system entered a mandatory cool-down mode, which tends to last longer with age. In younger men, this pause can be minutes. In older men, it can reach hours. Here is the key. There are ways to influence this time. Adjustments in nerve stimulation, circulation, and even simple breathing techniques can turn the wait into something much shorter. Think of the body as an electrical network. After the first discharge, part of the energy disperses. The trick is not to create energy from nothing, but to redirect the circuits so the current flows again. That is what some stimulation techniques do. They send direct signals to the parasympathetic nervous system, the one that opens the path to an erection. Instead of passively waiting for the body to reorganize, you trigger biological shortcuts that speed up the response. Men who learn to work with this mechanism report very similar sensations. First, mental calm. Next, the return of pelvic circulation. Then, the firmness that seemed distant settles back in. There is no magic in this. There is biology. Throughout the video, I will explain how to use this knowledge in your favor, step by step, until the second round becomes something predictable and natural, not a lottery. Before we continue, check if you are already subscribed to the channel. This ensures you keep receiving practical and objective content about intimate health. And I want to propose an interaction. If you think the biggest obstacle to the second round is circulation, write circulation in the comments. But if for you the problem is more related to anxiety, write anxiety. I want to see which word appears more down below. What happens inside the male body right after the first round is almost like watching an orchestra that, after playing its most intense piece, falls into complete silence to catch its breath. At the moment of orgasm, a cascade of chemical reactions unfolds. Dopamine, a neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and arousal, drops. Prolactin, a hormone associated with satiety and relaxation, spikes. This imbalance turns off the erection circuit. The blood vessels that were dilated begin to contract. The penis loses firmness, and the body sends a clear message. Now it is pause time. This is the refractory period, and it is not optional. It is like a safety lock that prevents the system from working again immediately. What changes with age is the length of this pause. In young men, the body is agile. The vessels are still flexible. Testosterone supports dopamine levels, and the return of the erection can happen in minutes. After 50 or 60, the response becomes slower. Testosterone drops, the arteries lose elasticity, and the communication between nerves and the pelvic floor muscles wears down. That is why for many mature men, the second round feels like a barrier that is almost impossible to cross. But here is the detail almost nobody mentions. The refractory period can be shortened. It is not about eliminating a natural mechanism. It is about working alongside it. When you understand that the block is chemical and circulatory, you start acting on the two key points. On one side, techniques that reduce the excessive release of prolactin or speed up the recovery of dopamine. On the other side, stimuli that improve pelvic circulation, opening the way for blood to fill the corpora cavernosa again. It is like turning on a backup generator while the main grid is still rebooting. Simply understanding this process already changes your perspective. Instead of seeing the pause as an enemy, you see it as a phase that can be influenced with the right choices. Throughout this video, I will show exactly what those choices are, and how men over 60 can regain confidence that the body still responds when called upon. If this explanation has already brought clarity to something that seemed like a mystery, take a moment to like the video right now. This quick gesture helps spread reliable information to other men who also need to understand that the second round is not out of reach. Now we need to enter a more concrete part. What exactly happens in your body that makes it so hard to regain an erection right after the first round? Think of the refractory period as an electrical circuit that disarms itself automatically to avoid overload. During orgasm, there is a peak of nervous activity that culminates in the contraction of the pelvic floor muscles and the expulsion of semen. As soon as this process ends, the body triggers a biochemical break. This break is not psychological, it is physiological. Prolactin, the hormone linked to the feeling of sexual satiety, is released at high levels. Its effect is almost immediate. It drastically reduces the activity of dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for arousal and desire. It is as if someone turned off the stage lights right after the show. Without enough dopamine, the brain centers that fire the signals of arousal simply do not respond. At the same time, important vascular changes occur. During the erection, blood is trapped in the corpora cavernosa through a delicate mechanism of venous compression. After ejaculation, this system releases, allowing the blood to flow back. The penis, previously firm, returns to a resting state. Here is the crucial point. The vessels do not only release the blood, they also enter a state of contraction. This makes it hard to regain firmness quickly, because local circulation needs time to reorganize. There is more. The sympathetic nervous system, the one that speeds the body to react in situations of alert, takes command during climax. The problem is that after orgasm it does not switch off immediately. The heart still beats fast, the muscles are still tense, and adrenaline levels remain high. This combination creates the perfect scenario for the body to say, "Wait a bit before starting again." In older men, this process lasts longer because there is a lower production of nitric oxide, the molecule that relaxes blood vessels, and a slower muscle response. This means the system needs more time to leave the contracted state and return to the receptive phase. That is why, instead of minutes, the wait can stretch for hours. The interesting detail is that although natural, this lock is not unchangeable. Science has already shown that small interventions, both in lifestyle and in specific stimulation techniques, can shorten the length of this period. But before we talk about practical solutions, it is essential to understand that difficulty in the second round does not mean failure. It is the consequence of gears that need adjustment to work in harmony again. If you want to understand in even more detail how to reduce the refractory period and regain an erection quickly, I prepared a special resource. In my digital book, Rediscovering Intimacy, Healthy Sexuality. After 60, I explain in detail simple techniques that speed recovery between rounds, strategies to improve pelvic circulation, and guidance to strengthen the body and the mind in this process. It is a direct guide, designed for mature men who want to turn the frustration of waiting into confidence and vitality. Access is in the link in the first pinned comment. If there is one point where science and practical experience meet, it is in explaining why the body seems to switch off after the first round and, at the same time, how this same body can be guided to speed up its recovery. The refractory period is not an absolute block. It is more like a cooling window that varies from man to man and from situation to situation. To understand this, imagine a muscle that has just been pushed to its limit. It needs a few minutes of rest to restore energy and clear metabolic waste. The penis, although it is not a muscle, follows a similar logic, but it is directed by hormones, nerves, and blood vessels. Right after orgasm, prolactin levels rise, but this is not the only factor at play. The body also releases endorphins and oxytocin, substances that create a feeling of relaxation, intimacy, and even sleepiness. This is why many men feel like lying down and sleeping instead of trying to start a second round immediately. This chemical package has a clear function: save energy and protect the body from excessive stimulation. There is a curious detail. Research shows that this natural break can be adjusted. In younger men, the hormone spike falls quickly and dopamine resumes its role within minutes. In men over 50 or 60, the drop is slower, and the return to an excited state depends on extra factors: efficient circulation, stress control, good sleep quality, and even psychological stimuli. This explains why in some contexts, even an older man can achieve a quick second erection. For example, in situations of high mental excitement, or when the emotional bond with the partner is especially strong. The point is that the refractory period is not only biological, it is also strongly influenced by the environment. A different touch, a change of pace, the absence of distractions, or external worries can completely change the speed of recovery. The brain, after all, is the largest sexual organ in the human body, and when it senses safety, pleasure, and novelty, it sends messages that lower the internal resistance to starting again. So instead of seeing this interval as a fixed obstacle, it is more useful to see it as a flexible mechanism that can be shaped. This view changes everything. Instead of waiting passively, you can act to shorten the recovery time, using both physical and mental adjustments that make the second round possible even after 60. Now that you understand what happens in the body during the refractory period, it is time to look at a technique many men do not know, but that can completely change the way they deal with this interval. The strategic stimulation of key points on the body. It sounds simple, but when done correctly, this practice acts like a real physiological shortcut to speed the return of the erection. One of these points is located in the perineum, the small area between the scrotum and the anus. Although discrete, this area concentrates nerves and vessels that connect directly to the pelvic floor muscles, which help sustain penile rigidity. When you press or massage this area firmly but gently, you send signals to the nervous system that reduce built-up tension and create space for blood to circulate freely again. Men who try it report the same sequence: a diffuse warmth, a light pulsing sensation in the pelvic region, and then the return of firmness. Another helpful element is deep breathing combined with touch. When you inhale slowly and release the air gently, the body activates the parasympathetic system, which lowers the heart rate and dilates the blood vessels. This internal change of command is crucial because during anxiety or frustration, the body gets stuck in sympathetic mode. Tension, tight muscles, and reduced blood flow. By combining mindful breathing with physical stimulation, you create the conditions for the body to leave defense mode and return to pleasure mode. There is another interesting point. This method does not depend only on the body, but also on the brain. By stimulating an area that is rarely considered, you break the predictability of the intimate moment. This novelty bypasses inhibition circuits, sending the brain an unexpected message of excitement. The result is almost always the same. Recovery becomes faster, desire reignites, and the second round, once seen as unlikely, begins to feel natural. This kind of practice shows that the body is not condemned to slowness. What seemed like a fixed limit is actually an adjustable mechanism. By using specific points of stimulation, you not only speed recovery, but also rebuild self-confidence. For many men, the biggest block is not physical, but psychological, the doubt about whether the body will still respond. When you prove to yourself that the response is possible, the second round stops being a challenge and becomes a choice. So far, we have talked about quick techniques, strategic points, and even the influence of hormones. There is a silent factor that is just as important as all the others, and most men ignore it: the overall energy state of the body. Think of it this way: an erection is not only a matter of desire, it is a process that needs fuel. Oxygen, nutrients, efficient blood flow, and prepared pelvic muscles. If the body has no reserves, recovery between one round and the next becomes slow, heavy, and almost impossible. Small daily choices directly shape sexual response. Start with hydration. The penis only gets rigid because it fills with blood, and blood is largely water. When you are dehydrated, circulating volume falls, pressure drops, and the body cannot sustain a firm erection. A glass of water before sex may seem irrelevant, but often it is the trigger that makes the difference between a viable second round and frustration. Food matters just as much. Notice what happens after a heavy meal rich in fats and carbohydrates. The body diverts a large part of the blood to the digestive system. It is as if the pelvic muscles were put in a waiting line, receiving less oxygen at the moment they need it most. This is why men who want better performance learn to adjust their eating routine. Foods rich in natural nitrates, such as beets and leafy greens, increase the production of nitric oxide, the molecule that relaxes blood vessels and helps fill the corpora. Cavernosa. Likewise, sources of zinc, magnesium, and antioxidants help keep hormones steady and tissues responsive. Do not forget cellular respiration. Regular physical exercise, especially aerobic work, increases the body's ability to use oxygen efficiently. This means that after the first orgasm, the body recovers faster because it is already used to restoring energy and clearing metabolic waste. It is like comparing an old car that takes hours to cool down and start again with a well-maintained engine that responds right away. There is also a less obvious but equally powerful factor: deep sleep. During deep sleep, most testosterone is produced. Without it, body energy drops and erection capacity is one of the first functions to suffer. Men who neglect rest notice the difference not only in overall energy, but also in difficulty sustaining more than one round. The truth is that an erection is a direct reflection of vitality. Every glass of water, every hour of sleep, every balanced meal, and every daily walk make up the invisible foundation that supports sexual performance. When these elements are aligned, the body makes it clear that it has not lost the ability to respond. It only needed the right conditions to show it still has strength for more. We have reached the point where theory meets practice. The mind. After the first orgasm, the body is already in recovery, but the mind decides how long that recovery will last. Many men believe they cannot achieve a second erection because of low testosterone or advanced age, when in reality, the real obstacle is psychological. It is the weight of expectation, the fear of failing again, and the anxiety that sabotages the body before it even has a chance to respond. The male brain is like a power station. It can release substances that make erection easier, such as dopamine and nitric oxide, or it can flood the body with stress hormones such as cortisol, which narrow blood vessels and slow recovery. Imagine a marathon runner who finishes exhausted. If he focuses on his fatigue, the body locks up. If he stays relaxed, breathes deeply, and accepts the recovery time, he can align his muscles to run again. The same applies to erection. Your mental state opens or closes the door to the second round. Subtle stimuli can speed this process. Physical closeness with your partner, touch without pressure to perform, and laughter that breaks tension. All of this tells the brain there is no threat. The nervous system, receiving this message, switches off alert mode and allows circulation to flow again. It is almost like an invisible reset button that reprograms the body's response. So the second erection does not depend only on strong muscles or healthy blood flow, but also on a mental state free of pressure. The man who understands this learns that he does not need to fight the body, but to cooperate with it. Each choice, slow breathing, relaxation, and confidence, adds to the physical factors and creates the ideal conditions for a firm response. If this content helped you see the second round in a new way, take a moment to subscribe to the channel now. You will get access to more exclusive content on male sexual health, with clear explanations based on science. Like this video so that more men can learn this information, and when you finish here, choose another video on the channel to keep going on this journey of rediscovering vitality. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.